And now, we're going to have another conversation in this realm of happiness and contentment and spirituality and society with one of the people who is most impressed, even knocked me over with this topic, Rabbi Irwin Kula.
Thank you.
So, Irwin, Rabbi, toda rabah for being here. This is great. This is great. I think you remember when I ran up to you and accosted you in New York after one of your sessions. I had never heard people articulate some of the challenges the way that you did. But before we get to that, you've been here for 2.5 days with us. Any thoughts?
Well, first, it feels like, 100 days, and I'm halfway there.
Wait, is that good?
It's like it's fantastic.
Okay, all right.
It's like time is, well, let me put it this way. I actually think that this is a new sort of congregation and a new sort of holy, sacred space. Mm-hmm. And I did this exercise last night, so it doesn't include this morning. First, I want to ask people how many times they actually said, "Oh my God," in the last 2 days. And I say that as a quotation marks religious leader. Or how many times they said, "Wow," or how many times we were amazed, awe, wonder. These are the sort of phenomenological experiences of the religious dimension. So something is happening with there's a shift. Now listen to these words that repeated over and over again: community, vision, empathy, trust, caring, service, synchronicity, be present, grounding, soul, flourishing, purpose, ethics, meaning, truth, book of life, gratitude, compassion, grounding, humility, story, humanity, dream, sacred, joy, light. If you didn't know that you were at a secular, convocation, if you didn't know that, and you just listened to the language and maybe did a word cloud even, you'd say, oh, no, that must have been some sort of religious or spiritual experience that people were at. And I think that's the single biggest insight I'm coming away with, besides all the incredible knowledge and sort of these superheroes who have begun to enter more domains than just the ones they're heroes in.
Wow. So just keep talking. No, thank you.
I really do. I really do mean it. I'm not bullshitting here. And I mean that respectfully. Something is happening in which the religion domain is being disrupted, like in a lot of other domains.
Yes.
And therefore, not surprisingly, many of those jobs and experiences are going to be in other places.
Well, that's by the way, that's the soundbite that Irwin Kula built out that really knocked me over, and there have been lots of things since. But the angle you took at that session in New York was, look, people are leaving synagogues and churches over the last decade, and it's likely to increase over the next decade. But religion, whatever you think about it, had lots of jobs to do.
Right.
It did a whole range of things for society, for communities, and we need something to fill its place. But wait a second, Rabbi. Hasn't science solved all these problems? Do we really need religion?
Yeah. Well, well, first of all, there's still about 5 billion people on the planet for whom religion in its traditional sense is important, which means that it's still important, because it can do a tremendous amount of damage and probably some good. I know it's weird to be a seventh-generation rabbi and to say I'm not completely optimistic about religion doing good, but I am very optimistic about being replaced in this next iteration of the human journey. So, science and religion, these are two expressions of fundamental human qualities. One, curiosity. We have a curiosity about ourselves and a curiosity about the world and curiosity about how things work, and the will to simply make a difference and improve our condition as human beings. Now, what those two things mean is what we argue about and we build systems. It turns out that science is the greatest single method developed up to now in the human adventure in understanding the world, including, as we're now beginning to do, the interior world of human beings. That's why religion is going to be fundamentally disrupted, because the only thing it had left Everything it said about the external world was basically wrong, and proven over the last 300 years. Now we're going to be wrong about a lot of things on the interior psychospiritual world. Okay, but religion is a technology. It turns out it's a series of stories and practices that help keep the tribe together and keep the tribe moving forward. Now, we need technologies that keep tribes together and keep people together and open those tribes up and keep things moving. Whether it will get the jobs done that it was historically set out to do, it will be evidence-based. Now, we know what the evidence-based is. 10,000 churches a year are closing in America. 1/3 of the entire sector, it's a $1.2 trillion sector. 1/3 of the entire sector is going out of business within the next decade. Now, if I'm an investor, and I'm an investor in spiritual capital. If I'm an investor, I say, what an unbelievable opportunity.
No.
If I'm a human being, I say, what an incredible responsibility is when that sector goes under.
Well, speaking of responsibility, I want to interject here, and this, again, there's a lot more to this jobs to be done. We'll come back to it. But I also want to, it's sounding very instrumental. It's sounding very mechanistic. Hey, we got this religious thing, keeps everybody together, keeps things moving along, makes people feel better, let's get on with it. What about the notion of truth or belief? What about the notion of how this fits within who we are as human beings?
Well, I said we now know truth is emergent. It's not like there's the truth. We've seen that. Truth is emergent, and human flourishing is an ongoing discovery of both how we flourish and how best to flourish and the methods and tools and to flourish. And religion, there's a lot to be mined from religion, as all wisdom traditions. But that's where I'm not afraid of a utility. I'm not afraid of something actually working. I think one of the problems over the last 100, 250, 300 years of religion is we haven't actually asked, does it work? Yeah. Does it work is not a nasty question. If you're supposed to, I'll say it as a Jew, if one walks into if one has a celebration, Rosh Hashanah is coming, right, next week, the high holidays, right, that's because we're so high. Rosh Hashanah comes and it's a new year, and you're supposed to, it's a practice designed to help you experience a sense of hope and possibility that you can be reborn as a human being, and you can let go of much of what has distorted you. If it's not working, we should put it out of its misery. And if it is working, right, we should actually mine it for how it could work for beyond our particular tribe. Now, I'm very honest in saying where it's not working. I mean, that's why I'm here and not in most synagogues.
Right. Well, so what are a couple of the jobs that religion used to fill and that we need a new path? So
you can tell from the words being used here, it's almost like an inductive experience. So one, it's clear that one of the things religion did, phenomenal adaptation to help us connect, we use the word community, beyond immediate kinship and blood tribe. And that's a tremendous accomplishment. There have only been two ways to do that in the history of humanity, and that's nations and religion. And both are right now in trouble. One, a kind of weird nationalism, and the other, a kind of weird religious fundamentalism. Now, we have to take, those of us who've rejected both of those as absolute answers have to take responsibility for what we created. But because we created the mutant forms of both of those ways of being human. So one is connecting, right? That's why you use the word community. You said, oh yes, synchronicity and this and that and that. But the thing that's most important, you said this morning,
yes,
to all the new people that came,
yes,
community. Why did you say that? Because it's a yearning we have. Of course we have a yearning community. The central narratives and the central institutions that produced community.
Us together are the body of the church.
Right. But that's over now for most people. No, that's over. In the West, it's over for basically anyone under 35. Okay, and we know the data is there, and the inflection point is coming institutionally. And when the inflection point really comes, I mean, we're getting there. We're almost there. That's a tremendous opportunity. So one job is connection. The other job is what we would call sort of moral accountability, moral imagination, right? One of the great things we ever imagined was to place a seeing eye in the heavens, I mean, like up there, and seeing eye in the heavens, and there was this feeling that this seeing eye in the heavens would know everything about us, including the things that made us ashamed, including the things that we tried to get away with. And if that seeing eye was there, it was tremendous imagination, the greatest character ever imagined in the West. And we imagined that character, then maybe we would be a little bit more what we call moral. Now we don't, now, by the way, we imagine that God in the sky, and now we actually have surveillance.
Rabbi, you're a rabbi. You're a rabbi. Do you still imagine that eye in the sky? Metaphorically.
Yes, so that's a really important question. I think things can be literally false and metaphorically true.
Okay, explain that.
So literally false means post-Freud, there is no character in the sky who's looking down at us and protecting us and watching over us. You just, first, no one's going to believe that in the next 50 years, okay? Most people who say they believe it don't believe it anyhow. They pray to the God that heals and they go to a doctor. So let's understand we have a desire, we have a deep desire to believe. Now, it turns out that desire gets played out in funky ways. Okay, but, so no, I don't believe there was a literal, but metaphorically, I will put it on this, the human experience, and that's what we've been talking about so much. If you take away the human yearning, the human desire for protection,
yes,
for every so often to believe and to feel the experience of being protected and loved, or the feeling, the desire to be known in all of who you are, not because you're smart, and not because you're rich, and not because you're good looking, and not because you're young or old, or not because you have enough clicks, but just who you are. That desire to be loved that way, if we take away that desire, it mutates. If we actually imagine...
To what? Mutates to what?
To exactly the opposite. If you don't feel loved,
which is hate,
you will self-hate or hate others, and that depends on a lot of other variables.
Factors.
So you will wind up disassociating from what it is you exactly yearn for and want, right? So if you want protection, and it may only be 5149 that the cosmos can be imagined as protective and as having a trajectory towards, complexity and elegance and fundamentally 5149 hopeful, but 5149 is everything. That's where I think, that's
why 51, why?
Because I think that anything more than 5149, you're lying to yourself. And I'm very careful about religious people speaking delusionary stuff. This is one of the things that everybody from their own, whatever your own field is, you have to be most embarrassed, or whatever your own identity, your own tribe. I always say, be most ashamed of your own group, and everybody will be better. Right now, everybody is...
Meaning self-critical, constructive
exactly,
criticism,
and not
humility.
Humility. Well, humility in an age of abundance is the most important virtue of all.
So talk about that. You and I talked a little bit about this before. How does the role of faith and religion, and I know they are different,
yes,
change within a coming world of abundance? And we can argue about abundance doesn't mean everything's great.
No, abundance.
Think about the fact that we have, some of us have more than enough food, and thus we have diabetes and obesity. So,
right.
So abundance doesn't mean everything's great.
That actually indicates that the challenges of abundance are fundamentally different than the challenges of scarcity. So,
yes.
So let's do it this way.
Your logic, we've existed in the context
correct.
of scarcity
every religion,
involved millions of years.
Every religion you know, every wisdom tradition you know, because all the axial age religions, which are essentially from 700 BCE till till Christianity.
Rabbi, could you speed up a little bit, because
I know I'm
getting a little tired.
I'm watching 731.
Okay. All right.
I'm from New York. And
I know.
And I'm ready but I've been listening all week.
Axial religions. Sorry.
All the axial religions were founded with two fundamental conditions. One is incredible scarcity. By the way, that's not only scarcity of food, it's scarcity of knowledge. It's scarcity of understanding how the world works, scarcity of how the understanding people work, and a tremendous amount of what we'd call hiddenness of what reality is about. And so they produce these religions that do what? When you're really have nothing, you have to have dignity when you have nothing, because the nothing strips your dignity. And it gives you a sense that you could know more than you are. That's the messianic dream, all that kind of stuff. Which, by the way, you heard as many messianic dreams in the last 2 days here as any religious community ever created in their entire lives.
Yes.
Okay? And all that means is that it's amazing how we so-called secular people are as spiritual and as deeply yearning for promised lands as any other people. But having that yearning and having those desires in a context of abundance changes everything. Because the challenge of abundance is to translate abundance into prosperity. If we don't do that, and prosperity is different than abundance. Abundance turns out what we now know. Abundance, fundamentally, we're able to get it because we can extract it. We can extract it from nature, we can extract it from labor, and we can extract it from each other. By the way, it's a tremendous accomplishment that we can extract at this level. So we have to celebrate the capacity to master nature that way. But it turns out that if you extract too much, you wind up leaving a lot of human beings behind. That's one kind of extraction. And you destroy the planet, so that's probably not so good. So that's another extraction. And then you have to say, oh my gosh, what's the morality and ethics and character of moving abundance to prosperity? And there it's clear, one absolutely has to have a sense of humility. You have to have hubris to master the world, and you have to have and the balance between.
By the way,
hubris and humility
your
is
comment
hard.
about hubris, humility.
It's hard to balance.
I know many of
those.
them aren't trying to say this, but some of them are. But even those that are not trying to say this are at risk. I'm tired of hearing, and I love my friends in the tech community. I love my friends in tech. I'm tired of hearing people say, we are becoming like gods. We're going to live forever. We're going to have all these powers. Okay, all right, get over it. Just come up with a different word, because that's so laden. And it also, I think, cues something inside you that might belie a problem.
Well, I would say that it's like everything else. There's a partial truth to everything. The question is to know which truth to use when. We imagine these gods, and we become the gods we imagine. And then the most important thing to do is to make your gods bigger. Because otherwise, you fall to the classic sin, quotation marks, right? Which is unbelievable arrogance. You actually imagine you're the gods. No, you're replacing the God. Yes, we imagine a God who would know everything. Right? If you do that for 2,000 years, it turns out you wind up creating artificial intelligence that will know everything about us more than we will ever know. And we will never get good enough as human beings to know what the artificial intelligence is. So we're worried a little bit about that gap, which is why one of the things those people who work with artificial intelligence should do is make sure they learn how to love the stranger. Because if they don't learn how to love the stranger, they're going to experience us as strange. And then we're going to be screwed.
Interesting, because... And this, we don't have time to go into the detail, but this is that next layer of Irwin Kula of saying, so what do we do about all this stuff? And when you were talking about that a few months ago, I thought of Søren Kierkegaard, live every moment as if God is watching.
Right.
And that's coming. So
that is coming, and the question is, right, it did enough damage when it was a projected God in the sky. Think about how much guilt that created, and how much shame, and how much violence. Imagine when it's human beings doing that and companies doing that. You know, it's better to have an illusion doing that than real people.
Rabbi, we're coming down to the end of our segment.
Okay.
What is one message you'd like to leave with everyone, one sign of hope that you can bring to us today?
Oh, I mean, first of all, I'm the most fundamentally hopeful person in the world. If you came to this place and spent the last 2 days and are not fundamentally hopeful, I don't know. I mean, you need real therapy, real therapy. Okay, so this is the most fun. I would say this, that all of us are the most privileged. The word blessed happened a few times here too.
Yes.
We really have to own the blessing. It's very hard to own the blessing, right? That's been one of the great dramas of the human community of what does it really mean to feel blessed? So I'd invite us to think this. One, we are going to, because of cognitive and physical augmentation enhancement, we're going to make human beings better at everything. We really are. And so especially those of us in this room, and we're a metaphor for a lot of other people, it's very, very important that we don't confuse making human beings better at everything and making better human beings.
Yes.
We have to be in the job of making better human beings now, because the more you can control matter, which is what a lot of us do, the more you have to make people matter. The more power that you get to handle, the more we have to learn how to handle
Absolutely.
power. And that is going to be emergent. Yes, we have to look at the philosophers and we have to look at the wisdom teachers. We have to bring those people, what Kant separated, we have to bring back in. We have to art and, beauty, truth, and goodness have to be brought back together. And we have to not silo those things, even though we don't have the languages yet.
Right.
We don't have the languages, but we'll do that. And the
Rabbi?
last thing is this. I want to say
Yes?
this. And that is that one of the things we all share is we all believe the world can get better. There's always some better place. And that's a very, very critical piece of the human yearning and experience. It can get better. It turns out to do that, you have to wander. And that word wander was used a few times here.
Yes, it was.
And the real challenge is then, with whom do you want to wander, right? With whom do you want to wander? And in the next round of being human, we're going to have to wander with everyone.
Rabbi, thanks so much for wandering with us. Here in our new sort of congregation,
Right, exactly.
Maimonides, Spinoza,
Right.
Irwin, Kula.
Thank you.